And welcome back to episode 120 of the Weekly Tech Round with me, Jay.
And me, Carl.
Well, Carl, what a week in tech it has been, hasn't it? There is
been a crazy one.
A crazy week ahead. We got a mixed-up bag of stories this week from new product releases, information, but also the news broken today of more layoffs in the tech industry, isn't it? Some big ones again.
Indeed.
Possibly the best part of 20,000 people are going to lose their jobs across a couple of different companies, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So what have we got then? So we've got this week a nice roundup of other stories. As I say, we've got Google, Nvidia talking about Microsoft. We're going to talk MSI. We're going to talk War Thunder. Now, if you can't think what's War Thunder, well, remembering War Thunder is that strategy? No, it's a
flight sim kind of, yeah.
Well, it's kind of a mix up of like flight sim,
tank sim,
like Battlefield sim, isn't it? Basically, where people who play that game have there as a forum, and let's put it this way, they like to prove a point.
They do.
We're also going to talk about Twitter, and as I mentioned earlier, some Apple product releases this week as such. And no Apple event; these are all being done by press releases, haven't they? It's a bit of a kind of a quietly out the back door approach, I suppose, for Apple.
Yep.
But let's kick off then this week with a quick roundup then of what's going on with Microsoft and their Activision Blizzard takeover. Well, the stalled takeover, I should say, shouldn't I?
Indeed. So it's time for Google and Nvidia to get in on the old game, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Because why not? So yeah, they both said they're going to have their say on the Microsoft Activision deal, and they provided their objections to the FTC. So these are some interesting ones. So apparently these sources wish to stay anonymous, but they had told Bloomberg that Google and Nvidia have provided information that backs a key FTC contention, namely that Microsoft could gain an unfair advantage in the market for cloud, subscription, and mobile gaming. And we obviously didn't get Google's statement, but we managed to get Nvidia's remarks, okay? And apparently they stressed the need for equal access to games, but did not directly oppose the acquisition. I think that's probably fair. They do have a streaming platform themselves, don't they?
Yep, they do.
So yeah, and Microsoft are saying they're not going to be blocking access to the games. I think that's a fair one, but I'm still puzzled why Google are getting involved.
Well, I was just going to say, to a degree, Nvidia really haven't got a fight in this, a dog in this fight, so to speak.
No,
because with Nvidia's Shield or cloud gaming capability, you leverage other services, don't you, to use the game?
They don't provide games themselves. They provide the rendering platform and the streaming infrastructure, but you provide the licensing for the games. Hence why they want the games to still be available on multiple platforms.
Yeah, and Microsoft have been very clear that they not gonna hold that back. That's one of their key tenets, isn't it, around this deal? And it's nice. But Google, hang on a minute. This is the company that's just shut down Stadia, or is going to be, isn't it, in the coming days?
As of now, I think it's dead.
Yeah, so
the 19th, wasn't it, January?
So, what's Google's fight here? I am completely missing this, because what advantage do they have by opposing this deal? What are they? They're not a gaming company. Nothing.
No, they don't have a game streaming platform. They don't have a game subscription service. So, and as far as I'm aware, they don't make mobile games. But Microsoft also published their apps and services for both iOS and Android. So it's not like Microsoft is saying, well, I'm going to take all those games and only put them on iOS now, because they publish on all platforms. They even have an Android phone themselves. The only thing I can think of is that maybe Activision uses Google Cloud for its hosting on its sites and its own multiplayer servers.
Oh, yes.
And they'd move it to Azure. I don't know if they do, but it was the only thing I could think of that might be why they're getting involved.
That's a really interesting point. When you take a step back, you're right. There could be existing GCP deals here, Google Cloud Platform. But to rip out and move a lift and shift to Azure isn't always that simple, is it? That's not a kind of a flick a switch job. That's going to be real.
No, it's not. But it'd be where Microsoft would be aiming to push stuff, surely, because it's less cost to them.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. But taking that part aside, it's very hard to understand what Google's actual issue is here, isn't it? So
yeah. I don't know. Interesting, but say we didn't get that information out of the report, so only what Nvidia were worried about.
No, but I think, as you say, I think the unfair, maybe theirs is definitely more aligned to the unfair advantage for cloud. Therefore, as you say, companies leveraging Microsoft's cloud capabilities to publish games, host games, as opposed to leveraging GCP or I guess
Yeah,
AWS in the same breath as well. But on that point as well, around the Activision deal, then yeah, they're
it never ends.
it never ends, doesn't it? And we were saying before about the EU is investigating, isn't it? And they've now kind of upped the ante a little bit, haven't they, around this
They have.
antitrust issue?
Yeah, so yeah, the EU Commission, they're reading what they call a charge sheet. It's basically a statement of objections setting out its concerns about the deal. This is going to be sent to Microsoft in the coming weeks. Now, this isn't their final decision. It's just a heads up that this is what they're worried about, and I think it's Microsoft then have the ability to come back to them and say, well, this is what we're going to do here. This is how we'll allay these fears, etc. So it's a chance for, I think, Microsoft to speak about what it's going to do. But I think the actual final decision is due on the 11th of April. So there's still a little bit of time there.
And the thing is, isn't it, that it's likely that the EU regulators won't be able to open any deal or negotiation until they've levied the charges, so to speak, and they put them on the table. So then Microsoft can counter those on it. And I think that's what we're waiting for here, isn't it, on that? But it was confirmed, though, in that same statement that Microsoft have, we talked about Nintendo, didn't we, in the 10-year deal for Call of Duty?
Yep.
That's definitely confirmed now that they have said that that deal is on the table, but of course awaits Sony's agreement, doesn't it? That they're happy to move forward with it.
Sony are not going to agree to anything.
Not this week, anyway.
No,
but no, you have got to feel for Microsoft here, because it's this deal is huge. It's if not the largest acquisition they've done, it's going to drive a huge part of their business going forward. And I suppose it's probably costing a lot of money as well, isn't it? While they burn through legal
outside of the 69 billion for the actual buyout.
Yeah, massively. And I guess that kind of leads us to where we're going next. And we alluded to that in the sort of cold open there around the layoffs and the tech industry. Well, it was announced, wasn't it, earlier this week that Microsoft are laying off approximately 10,000 employees. Now, that has not been quantified to say where they are, but it does appeer to be worldwide, doesn't it?
It does. It's what, about 5% of the workforce, isn't it?
Around that, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So Satya Nadella did put out a statement, basically saying that the company will be making changes that will result in a reduction of the overall workforce by 10,000 jobs through the end of financial year 23, quarter 3. So it's not an immediate 10,000 jobs gone, but it's going to be over the next months. Although he did go on to say that the company will continue to hire in key strategic areas, which is always what you want to hear when you're losing a job. You're not one of the key people they need. So, but yeah, apparently more than 800 employees were notified on the day, and the rest will be completed by the end of March, or get at least their notifications. But we did hear some snippets, not directly from Microsoft, but we heard some rumors about where these are from, and the cuts seem to be coming from HoloLens and Edge teams. The marketing department, and actually, bizarrely, they're gaming studios. 343 Industries, which is Halo. They're guys responsible for Halo, and Bethesda as well, which is obviously one of their previous acquisitions.
Yeah, which that must sting as well, given they're trying to buy other studios and they're laying off certain members of the existing studio teams. But yeah, I think it is quite. This is significant. This is much larger than the layoff they did last year, which is around 1%, if I remember correctly. He stated, isn't it, that particularly in the US at least, they'll get above market severance pay. They're going to get their healthcare covered for I think 6 months, and they'll also get their RSUs or stock vesting for 6 months as well. And a minimum of 60 days notice, isn't it, prior to termination? I'm guessing
the whole stock one's quite an interesting one, though.
I thought that.
I've been made redundant before, and I had a large number of vesting stock due in like the next month, and didn't get any of it.
I guess this is
part of the package. Yeah,
this is smoothing the exit, though, isn't it? I suppose for these people,
it is. Yeah, and looking at those divisions, HoloLens, I can kind of understand, especially after the news, and I don't think we've discussed it on this show, about the military not renewing their order for more
That's right.
HoloLens yet because they
Yeah.
weren't happy with it. So I can kind of see that. And actually, to an extent, the gaming studios, because what's the betting they've just been operating independently, and now they're starting that integration piece. So there's going to be a lot of duplication of back office staff that Microsoft already has functions for, so it doesn't need another team doing the same job.
No, I think that's definitely probably a very valid point because you're right. They're looking to consolidate roles, as you say. If they've come into acquisition, we all know that there's a period, isn't there, where they run independently, but
Nothing changes. Yeah,
at some point that has to break, doesn't it? And you have to become part of the parent organization. And you're right. There's
you do.
probably a crossover in roles and those sort of things as well. So that kind of makes sense here. But I think what was also interesting in that statement from Nadella was that they're also taking a $1.2 billion charge in the
Yep.
Q2 earnings, and that is covering the severance costs. They're also consolidating several leases as well across the different offices they have worldwide.
Yep.
Again, that's a knock on from COVID, surely, where the hybrid workforce and removing buildings they're not using. But that's a lot of money to be writing down
For a
across,
quarter, not a year, for a quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite painful for them. I mean, you have to feel for those people at MS. You think large companies are not immune to these things, given that they've got a lot of money.
No, they're not.
But I think they're not. I mean, I have today seen a couple of people on LinkedIn already, not
Really?
personal connections, but people that they from friends of what's it your connections posting a connection, isn't it, or resharing,
That's the one.
whatever.
Yeah.
And it was it's telling. It's telling already that these people are they're already looking for roles. I think I saw a couple of people, some who workplace managers in the US, that kind of stuff. So
I suppose, in all fairness, if you're going to go out of 10,000, you want to go first. So there's more jobs out there currently for you to go and get a job in.
Well, and that's the thing, isn't it? Kind of, the other part of this is that, as we said, Google have now just announced themselves that they too are laying off 12,000 people in their latest round. So this a story that's broken today, 20th of January.
Minutes before we went on air, wasn't it? So
yeah. So I thought it was relevant that we raised this. I appreciate, we probably haven't there, but this is around 6% of their global workforce. They said, and Sundar Pichai said that in his statement, that this is a moment for the company to, I quote, sharpen our focus, re-engineer our cost base, and direct our talent and capital to the highest priorities. And that apparently artificial
intelligence.
coughing there as well. Artificial intelligence will be a key area going forward. Well, that's telling because actually, on a kind of random point, what did Microsoft just make a huge investment in this last week?
The people that run ChatGPT, didn't they? Is it OpenAI?
Yeah, OpenAI, isn't it? They took a massive investment into to OpenAI, wasn't
OpenAI, yeah.
where I think they added close to $1 billion or something in investment.
Wow. Yeah.
Which they invested, I think, more than that, several $1 billion, because they now own 49% of the company. The parent company owns the other 49%, and then 2% has been left over for the smaller investors.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of one breath, say about AI, and there's Google saying they're going to, but this, Google won again. So that's another 12,000 people, because last week they, or earlier in the month, I should say, they announced layoffs at one of their health subsidiaries that form part of the Alphabet umbrella, and also at Intrinsic, which develops software for robots, industrial capabilities.
Yep.
So there, I really do think there is a I think it's a recession coming. That's not my, I'm not an economist, but you can't help but start to wonder, is there a recession on the way, isn't it?
Yep, it's not been great, has it? A great start to the year.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, if any more of these come up, we will certainly, talk about it. But given that, in the last few months, we've had Meta laying off 11,000 people.
We have
Amazon, we're close to 20,000 people.
Yep.
It's it's not a great time at all, is it really, in that sense?
Not at all. Yeah. So, to all those people who have lost their jobs, we wish you the best of luck.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. So moving across then, let's talk a little bit about MSI and what I can only describe as the weirdest kind of security I've ever seen in a while. But go
So, hands up, who's got an MSI motherboard currently?
on. You?
Me? And guess what? Mine's affected. But it seems, this is just bizarre. Okay, so it seems that the secure boot process on almost 300 different motherboards from MSI isn't actually secure. It does boot, it's just not secure. And this came about because open source security researcher, Dawid Patochki, he's based in New Zealand. He's found that some MSI motherboards with certain firmware versions basically allow arbitrary binaries to boot despite them violating the secure boot policy. So, for those that don't know secure boot, it's basically a security standard built into the BIOS of your motherboard that's supposed to kind of check the cryptographic signatures on each piece of software that's booted. So it could be your UEFI firmware drivers, IFI applications, the operating system itself. And only once, they know the executable or what you're loading hasn't been modified in any way because the signatures match, it then allows them to boot. And obviously, you can remove items from the allowed list. You can add items in. So it's not just Windows. Linux has a secure bootloader as well, which you can add to the list so you can boot from Linux as well if you want to. But it seems that they've got secure boot enabled, but have told it when it hits an executable or a firmware that isn't valid to allow it to run anyway.
Yes. There's not much you can say to that, is there?
So beyond, I can't see a point of having secure boot enabled when it catches something, it just allows it to run anyway. The mind boggles on that one. So Dawid reached out to MSI when he discovered the flaw. So this is over a month ago, but surprise, surprise, got zero response. But I think now with all the press they've stumbled on this, MSI have finally responded now. And this is a doozy. It really is. It's talking about shifting the blame. So they said MSI implemented the secure boot mechanism in our board products by following the design guidance defined by Microsoft and AMI before the launch of Windows 11. They went on to say we basically preemptively set the secure boot as enabled and always execute as the default setting to offer a user-friendly environment that allows multiple end-user flexibility to build their PC systems with thousands or more components that include built-in option ROMs, OS images, etc., etc. Then it says, for users who are highly concerned about security, they can still set image execution policy to deny. Now, hold on there. I'm probably 110% sure that Microsoft did not provide design guidance on enabling secure boot, but allowing it to run anything. I call them on that one. Now, I know Windows 11 required secure boot, doesn't it? So this is why quite a lot of CPUs that could actually run on Windows 11 no problem, because the specs requirements aren't really any more than Windows 10, couldn't because they didn't support secure boot. And I know MSI did push out BIOSes to everyone. Were enabling secure boot by default, so that when they upgraded to Windows 11, it worked and didn't break the system. I had to go dive into the BIOS and figure it out. What I can only suppose has actually happened is they've gone, well, if we enable this now, how many support calls are we going to get about this? About not being able to boot, etc., because we've enabled it and we've blocked non-signed stuff. And they've gone, you know what? We'll just allow this. It will allow you to boot Windows 11, but we won't get any of the support calls involved.
You have to ask yourself, what the hell are MSI doing here, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah. I've always kind of gone to MSI because... mainly because when I'm looking at motherboards, they usually have the PCI Express lane set up how I want them. So I've got an X16, which is actually X16. I've got another X16, which is an 8. I get a 4X as well, which isn't great for a 10 gig network card if you've got a modern one. Quite a lot of other manufacturers don't give you that 4X slot. Yep. So I was like, so the last time I boards, I've always had that, because that means I can add all the cards in I need and not have to worry about it or not have to sacrifice anything. But it's making me reconsider for my next board.
It does, doesn't it? I have to say, I quite like it with some of the boards I've had in the past, But yeah, given this very peculiar approach, I would be giving it a wide berth at this time. Personally speaking, I'm just
Yeah. So I did see the last comment saying they're now going to push out a new updated BIOSes that basically do it the proper way around. But I imagine that's going to affect multiple people's PCs. But probably only the guys that actually go and update firmware BIOS. People that don't, then it's not really going to affect them, is there?
no,
And it's only,
no.
I suppose, I imagine it's probably only has tech-savvy people that actually go and update BIOSes.
Well, we've had that before, haven't we? Where we see machines, like the BIOS is just the same as it was shipped from the factory, and that's like how many X number
Yeah.
of years ago. And that's one of the things you and I and other power users certainly would do if getting a machine
Yep.
or a server, update the BIOS for capabilities, security, and other aspects. But yeah, you're right. Your general user typically does not ever.
No, so they would have bought it from the shop. So yeah, I mean, and this only affects MSI's desktop boards apparently. Their laptops boards and stuff, or complete laptops, have it enabled properly by design. But then I suppose MSI built in the complete kit, haven't they? At that point, if they're doing the laptop, so they can certify it's all properly cryptographically signed.
Very peculiar. Well. And it's interesting, as you say, that this could be a deliberate move by MSI, isn't it? Which is very peculiar if it is the case.
Yeah, it's not a great look.
Yeah. Well,
something else that isn't a great look.
Well, yes. So War Thunder. Oh dear.
So here we go again. I mean,
we talked about it before,
not the first one, is it?
No,
this isn't the first time,
no.
or the second. It's not even the third time. From my own memory, this is going to be the fourth time. Someone has basically leaked restricted military intel on the War Thunder forums to try and win an argument.
I mean, so as we said, War Thunder is this, online game where it's a modern battlefield where you can fly planes, tanks, ships, etc., isn't it? And you level up, I guess, don't you? So as you progress through the game, you have access to additional material. Now, before we had somebody in the War Thunder forums settling an argument. I think it was, if I recall, around main battle tank, wasn't it? At the time, posted what was classified information that wasn't, freely available in the public domain, and obviously carried major issues, legal issues, if that. Well, as you say, this has happened again now, but this refers to not a tank, but this is the F-16 fighter, which the US currently used, isn't it? So,
it is. It's still currently. I'm not sure if the F-16A is still used.
No, I mean they're well up to. But the F-16 is a general platform, so to speak.
Exactly.
Is in use, isn't it?
Yeah. So this was a user by the name of Space Navy 90, and this is an odd one. So it wasn't like he was trying to win an argument. He was trying to, I suppose, head off an argument. So he wrote basically, said, interesting thing I found during my research. During early AMRAN testing, you can see how the F-16A would equip the AIM-120 and use TWS on a non-MFD store's control panel SFP. But before the argument even started, he then uploaded a full technical documentation for it to the forum. And this document is classified restricted, isn't it? Yeah?
Yeah, this is it. This is the whole point, isn't it? So this is a restricted document. Whilst it is available in the public domain, so to speak, in the sense that it's not highly classified, it has export restrictions on it, doesn't it? So you can't.
It does, a distribution statement, doesn't it? Yeah.
You can't sort of like post it anywhere. It has to stay within. And this is nuts. It's just like, oh my god, where are these people doing from? And clearly, War Thunder, game with which has users from around the world, is not an approved platform to post this on.
No, definitely was not in the distribution statement. But anyway, apparently that has been pulled from the forum, hasn't it? The moderators have got involved. As one of the users commented, there's actually a penalty of conviction of unauthorized disclosure, including up to 10 years in prison, a large fine, or both.
Yeah,
you can go to jail for this.
The US takes very seriously around their export content, especially around information on military platforms. I mean, we work in the software industry. We see that as well. In software, don't we?
Export control, cryptography, and stuff like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little bit, but on the other hand, just to take a step back, though. On the other hand, if it is in the public domain, so it's clearly if this person has done research and they've defined it, you've got to kind of question how sensitive is it. You see my view here?
Yeah, I still
You know,
wouldn't risk it.
no. But what I mean is, how
Not over a
sensitive?
game of War Thunder.
No, how sensitive is this? Because if you know, let's be honest, if you or I
Yeah,
could go off in a bit of Google foo and probably find it as well, you've got to question, you know, is it really that
yeah,
important? And if it refers to the F-16A, which it possibly does, I'm not entirely sure. Um, you know, we're now up to what the F-16, I think F is the current version that or the E and the F, which is what the current, I think the US are doing. There are other versions that go up to, I think N and you know, Q with their different
yep.
versions, but the US is currently flying the F variant. Um, so you're talking several variants on the software, the platform, everything is absolutely different about that plane, isn't it? Apart
Yeah,
from,
this is what a
you know,
40-year-old plane by now, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. You know, so but it has to be War Thunder. It's just of all the places,
Every time.
it's back here again, isn't it? So yeah, not a
Yes,
good
tune in
move.
a couple more months for another story on War
I'm
Thunder.
sure we will. But let's see, maybe a ship or a submarine this time, just for
Oh, yeah, a bit of variety, please, guys.
yeah, please, yeah, okay. Talking of though, getting a slap on the wrist, then back over here in the
Oh,
UK, we're now pushing forward with the what's it, the online
online
safety
safety
bill,
bill. Yeah.
which kind of died a little bit, didn't it? But it's been resurrected with the new government under Rishi
Died
Sunak.
several times.
Yes,
Never actually made it through yet.
and then the defib was put to it, and it's come back to life. And it appears to be moving forward, doesn't it? And could pass if the government sign off it. However, in one of the
Yeah.
last stages of the votes in the House of Commons, which for those that, again from outside the UK, the House of Commons is the main legislative I can't say the word chamber of government.
Legislative. Yep.
That's the right one. Thank you very much. And to get through, you know, any new law, we have to pass several votes before signing off. Now, this has completed that in the House of Commons and goes now to the House of Lords, which will eventually, you know, either approve it
Ratify it and yeah.
and sign it off into law. And that will take a while, thankfully. However, though, there has been a new term added in, isn't it? That where the wording is a little bit, well, I want to say the wording's a little bit dated, isn't it, in how it's going to tackle certain offences. So, Carl, do you want to take
Yeah.
us through it?
Yeah. So basically, this is all around. So basically, but tech company executives found to be deliberately exposing children to harmful content could soon risk steep fines and jail time of up to 2 years. Now, I'm paraphrasing here when I say company executives. They actually say managers, don't they?
They do indeed.
Managers haven't really run companies, or not certainly not tech companies, for a very long time. Your managers are people. They're just nowhere near the top. You've got managers, senior managers, directors, VPs before you even hit the C level, haven't you? And those are the guys ultimately in charge. But yeah, the report says that these tech executives for platforms hosting user-generated content would only be liable if they fail to take proportionate measures to prevent exposing children to harmful content, such as materials featuring child sexual abuse, eating disorders, and self-harm. But yeah, the fines are big, up to 10% of the company's global revenue. Potentially 2 years in prison. But you know, they can avoid this by putting things like age verification, parental controls, and policing content.
It's just like you say, you know, middle management, low level management do not run companies. You know, certainly
No.
in tech organizations of the kind that we are talking about here, that will uh, possibly, you know, not allow, but you know, content will be available on. The people who are, you know, ultimately responsible for it are getting away from it, then, aren't they? You
Yeah,
know,
managers manage people in tech companies. They don't manage the product and the company.
no, a product manager is not a manager in the sense of management, is it? It's, you know, it's
No.
an operational role, you know, in the issued design and development of such product or access or tool or whatever you want to call it. It's just very, very dated. And to say that, you know, the culture secretary who wants to push for this amendment, you know, she was quoted as saying additional teeth to deliver change and ensure people are held to account. Yeah, great. But you're targeting the
Yep.
wrong people here in that sense. You know, the executive level should be,
Yeah.
ultimately should be
The one's
pushed forward
actually in
for that.
charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you say this is an interesting bill. You know, on the one hand, it's got some good points like this, other than saying managers rather than C level. I think it's a good thing, especially if they've got teeth. You know, they can actually enforce something now, and people may go to prison if they don't pull the finger out, for want of a better word. But there's a big but here from me. This is also the same bill where they're trying to sneak backdoor into encryption.
Yes, it's a very valid point. Yeah.
So on that hand, I can't stand behind this bill because that would be 10 times worse.
It's not giving you much, is it, here to feel that actually it's going to do what it says on the tin?
No.
I feel on the other hand it could cause more issues.
Now, I mean, if they obviously put some fines in jail time for the MPs, if my data gets out there due to the backdoors in their encryption, I stand behind it. But I guarantee not one single one of them is going to put their name or head on the block for that, are they?
No, of course they're not. Don't be daft.
No, exactly.
Don't be daft at all. I mean, look, let's be honest. Given some of the high-profile issues, we've had, for example, Facebook, of course, like that. Where's the accountability for the senior executives there who ultimately are overseeing, the company, the product, and the service?
Also, how's it going to work if you're say take manage that, and it is they do actually mean the C-suite, and the C-suite is living in the US, for example. No. They're not going to do a what do you call it? I've forgotten the word now. Get them sent over here to be put in prison, are they? Extradited?
No. Of course not. Nobody's going to be extradited. Don't be daft.
So who's actually? Are they just going to take the highest level person in the UK, even if they're not responsible for it?
Well, that's the way it kind of feels, doesn't it? That potentially people who are not indirectly, I guess, are going to be punished for this. Whether let's just say take a Facebook or something. Let's just as an example, not stating, but somebody in Mark Zuckerberg's organization or his leadership chain, should be therefore brought forward for punishment, or at least brought to account for it. Now, again, just to clearly state that as an example, that's not what we're saying is happening. But yeah, I don't. Again, this is legislation which is clearly not being given the right level of scrutiny. If it has
people that know what they're doing and know the industry.
Well, if it has got industry backing or research into it, then something needs to be done, because the way it reads and the information that's coming out, again, do not show to me, at least, that this government fully understands the tech industry and particularly the internet. That's my personal opinion.
But has any government?
Well, no, that's very valid. No,
they don't. Yeah.
Breathe.
Okay. Next story. Our dear friends at Twitter.
Yes, our dear friends.
Oh, it's just gone from bad to worse, isn't it? So a week ago, I think numerous third-party Twitter apps basically stopped working without warning. Quite often they just either wouldn't load, or they got a 404 access denied kind of messages popping up. But some continued to work, so they didn't think it was an actual API issue at Twitter's end. And even oddly, some apps that had both iOS and Android clients would only work on one platform and not the other. But Twitter said nothing until this week on the 17th, where Twitter finally responded with a single statement saying, Twitter is enforcing its long-standing API rules. That may result in some apps not working. They didn't go on to say what those long-standing rules were or anything like that. Gave no hint. Just that was the only statement. Well, you can probably guess where this was going, really. So as of yesterday, Twitter has quietly updated its developer agreement to make it clear that app makers are no longer permitted to create their own clients. But no official statement has been given. They just sneakily updated the T's and C's there. Yep, and that's all we know. There's been no further statement from Musk or Twitter, though Twitter doesn't actually have a communication department anymore, so why would we? My only guess on this, really, it's got to be about ad money, hasn't it?
Got to be.
Because if you're a third-party app using the API, and that's quite why people use third-party apps, they don't see all Twitter's ads, which is obviously cutting off revenue from Musk. And as he said, that Twitter's not making any money. It's hemorrhaging it. So I suspect this is why they're doing it.
This is definitely closing the door, isn't it? As you say, to people not engaging the adverts. This is now making sure that you are locked into the Twitter ecosystem. You're going to get front and center all of the badly targeted apps that they have, and you cannot escape. That's it. But in doing so, again, they are absolutely destroying their customer base, aren't they?
Oh, people's livelihoods as well, because
Yeah.
Twitter can't make up its mind whether it wants third-party and developer support or not. I mean, the last time before Musk came in, they were all for it. So people have gone and they built apps, built livelihoods on it, and now it's just been destroyed in a matter of a week with no statement.
No, it's terrible, absolutely terrible that they've got to that stage. And I think the amount of people that have been wanting to use these apps go to use it are thinking, oh, they broke. It's this me. Actually, no, it's Twitter, but Twitter hasn't.
Why
got
not make a subscription for access to API?
Yeah, because then, but the problem with that though, then is if you're an app developer and you're pushing a free app, then you.
I imagine, I'm not sure. I've never actually looked at a third-party client because I haven't really used Twitter that long. I just presumed they were probably all paid for apps anyway.
I'll be honest with you. It's been a long time since I've used a third-party client myself. I think there's TweetDeck is one of them, isn't it? I think is.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Twitterami, something like that. Yeah, there's a couple of different ones.
TweetDeck is free, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think though my understanding is that you can increase. I think I'm guessing through subscription you can increase what the capabilities of the app are. But I remember signing up for it and not having to pay.
Okay. But I mean, even at that point, they said that, well, if you now want to use it, there'd be a X amount per month, which covers whatever Twitter are charging for API access. It would at least give them an option.
Yeah, if you're true, it would give you an option, definitely.
While they might not see adverts, Twitter is still making money.
Well, no, that's the problem they've got right now, isn't it? They're not making enough of that.
Well, yeah, but I don't think I've ever clicked on an ad in Twitter. I just my brain is going to just ignore adverts in all these applications.
I've reported several ads for being scams or
Yeah, I've done that one, and the amount of ones I've seen are generally financial ones. Yeah, I report that.
Definitely, yeah, that's fair. But yes, broken Twitter API, and as you say, Twitter is saying that it's long-standing API rules. Well, they can't be that long-standing because clearly, things were working prior to this change. But I can't help but feel that Mr. Musk has shoved his fingers into this, and off we go.
Indeed.
Right then, so let's talk through then quickly before we get to the tech round rumor mill. The recent Apple product releases that slipped out the door this week through press release rather than the.
Well, there was a 20-minute video, but I've not watched the video yet.
Well, it's hardly a slick product release, isn't it? Let's be honest,
Oh, so what did we get, Jay?
We got brand new MacBook Pros with M2 Pro and M2 Max chips inside them. These come with 8K HDMI. They also support Wi-Fi 6E as well, and that gives us now the M2, the Pro and the Max lineup, which now matches the M1 chips that we saw last year. Interestingly, though, early indications from testing showing that they are suffering from the same memory and cooling issues or bandwidth issues anyway that we saw with the M2 when that was released earlier on. Interestingly, Apple also is saying, though, that according to Apple, I should say, they're saying that they've got the longest battery life ever of Mac with approximately 22 hours of runtime in a MacBook. I mean, that is something. I mean, wow.
That's
the 8K display with HDMI again is amusing because I'm still in my head. It's like, who the hell is using 8K? I mean, it's just but the real kick in the teeth is apparently they now support up to 4 external displays.
I did chuckle when I heard that one.
Yes, I stuck my teeth there. Another interesting point with these M2 is the spec on these. So we had a look at this on the website, didn't we? You can spec a MacBook now up to 96 gig of RAM and 8 terabyte of storage in a MacBook.
Yeah, 12 CPU cores and 38 core GPU in the Max, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you want all of that, that's going to cost you £6,749. Ouch.
That's a lot of money. A lot of
That
money.
is a lot of change.
The pricing has gone up as well. You're looking over here in the UK, at least you're looking at over £2,000 for the entry level MacBook M2
That's
Pro as
getting
well.
pricey.
It
That's
is getting very
pricey.
pricey as well. I mean, the early indications are, very good machines. Again, you're looking at a step up, but I think what we're starting to see here is, I'll rephrase that. I think what we're starting to see here is similar to the Intel system where we had the tick-tock, didn't we? That's what we've got here.
Yeah.
And the actual bell curve of real performance increases is now limited, isn't it? Apple state otherwise in their lovely pie charts, but real world
They're still
testing.
comparing it to Intel-based MacBook Pros, aren't they?
Yeah, and the problem we're not now. What they need to do now is, instead of comparing a Lamborghini a Ferrari, actually you're comparing two Ferraris that are the same model, but one's released last year, one's released this year. It's marginal increases, and I think for the average punter in the street, to use that phrase, you are not going to see massive difference if you take an M2 Pro versus an M1 Pro.
No, exactly.
They saying, that Apple comes out with these great things, saying things like, Adobe Photoshop is 80% faster than the fastest Intel-based Mac. Okay, makes sense. They're also saying that it's 40% faster than the previous M generation. We're seeing things like that, and they're saying again stuff is 2.5 times faster. Again, as you say, against Intel-based MacBook Pros. So, but in the same sentence, they're then saying, so it's the wording is the key. So here's a statement from Apple: compiling in Xcode is up to 2.5 times faster than the fastest Intel MacBook Pro, and nearly 25% faster than the previous generation. So you've got two statements there, measurement statuses. They're not the same. That is not the same, is it? 2.5 times faster and 25%. That's not the same statement.
And that's Intel-based Macs, not Intel-based anything.
No. So again,
they're comparing it to their old when does the last Intel-based MacBook Pro?
Well, if we go back to proper release, we're
talking at least 2 years ago.
Minimum of 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, I'm guessing Apple weren't rocking the latest Intel.
No, of course they weren't. Look.
I'm not saying they're not fast. They are very fast machines.
They are very fast
but
machines.
Apple's metrics when it comes to performance and showing that are terrible and very misleading.
Well, exactly. And given that some independent testers were seeing some major issues with the M1. So one of the testers, Vadim Yurevay, I pronounced that wrongly. I'm so sorry. Yeah. He's part of Max Tech, isn't he? The Max Tech YouTube channel.
Yep.
They tested the last generation 32-core M1 Max in a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and their conclusion was that it was barely faster than the $2,500 16-core M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook for 8K RAW, and the reason was all to do with overheating and thermal throttling. So they are very concerned as a testing platform that the 38-core M2 Max chip is going to have the same issue.
Chassis, yeah.
I really think, and I think to use your statement earlier, Apple have hit a real roadblock with cooling in this M series now.
But they don't really do much cooling. I've seen some teardowns.
It's all passive,
and it's basically all passive. And even it's a very, very thin sheet of aluminium that's basically planted on top to help cool it. There's no fans, there's no heat pipe design or anything like that to draw that heat away. It's just like they haven't tried.
No, and this is the problem. I think the M1s were such a radical leap forward, and because remember those early M1 chips were still in the old Intel chassis MacBooks, weren't they?
It was bigger, it was thicker. They had the cooling for Intel, didn't it?
Yeah, and we saw huge leaps across the board. Yep. M2 series, with the current chassis design, they are plateauing. We are hitting that thermal throttling, issue with it. And that doesn't help also because alongside that, they launched the M2 Mac Mini with Pro, with an M2 and
but that's for the cooling in it, I imagine.
Yeah, but it's the same problem because it's still as thin. It's not the cooling's not going to be much better in those because it's not going to be massive.
But the minis in the M1s had actual fans in them, didn't they?
They did, but I haven't seen a teardown on whether that's been in the same
So
with the
I was
current
going to
ones.
presume, being the same chassis, it would actually have active cooling, so we might not get this throttling.
Well, you want to hope so because we certainly don't see it in the studio, which has got the much bigger
Yeah.
heat, block, isn't it?
Well, you can't get you can only get the M2 Pro, can't you, for the Mini? You get M2 and M2 Pro. There's no
Max.
M2 Max.
Well, what does that tell you?
Well, that's segmentation, isn't it?
Yeah,
they don't want to cannibalize the studio. That one.
Bingo. That is, you want a studio, and this is why I still don't get why the Mac Mini exists, personally speaking. However, the Mac Mini, current Mac Mini now allows you to get, as you say, M2 or M2 Pro. The I/O ports not too different from the last ones. We get 2 Thunderbolt 4s. We get 2 USB-A. We get gigabit or 10 gigabit.
Or 10 gig.
Yeah. And if you buy the M2 Pro, you get 2 additional Thunderbolt 4 ports, which again is our limitation on the bus, which drives us absolutely nuts on the PCI Express lanes, isn't it, as well?
It is. I was totting this up. Now, this isn't as expensive as your MacBook Pro, is it?
No.
But actually, if you went, and you don't need 8 terabyte storage, and you just want something sensible, let's just put in, the top end 12 core, 19 core GPU, 32 gig of RAM, 10 gig Ethernet, a terabyte of storage. You come in at about £2,400.
Which isn't too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. And actually, for once, Apple aren't doing too bad. If you were to take the 14-inch MacBook Pro with the same configuration, granted, you're getting a screen and a battery included, that's £3,099.
Yeah.
So there's a good, £700 saving. And obviously, if you drop the 10 gig Ethernet, you can knock another £100 off. So an £800 saving by ditching a screen and a battery if you don't need it.
And that's the thing. I think if you are somebody that's already got the equipment and you're just trying to, this is a great way to do it. So for example, looking at me, I've got already my own keyboard, mouse. I've got my own screens. Yeah. The Mac Mini would slot nicely in behind those at the minute, but it's still hampered. And to me, I think the studio is a better option if you need more. But on the other hand, if you just need a Mac, literally a Mac, then it's still got a place, isn't it?
It has. And I'll be interested to see the actual benchmarks on that and whether it's got active cooling and a teardown.
That would be definitely something to see. However,
if it hasn't, you could actually do something about that. It's a desktop. You could pop that out and stick it in another chassis and actually add a giant heat sink and some proper cooling to it and make it a complete beast.
Do you know what? That's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down right now, but I do wonder if anybody's done that. However, the biggest shock of the day, though, was the brand new HomePod. So Apple have resurrected let's call the HomePod Maxi, the big one. So this is a brand new full-size HomePod, which has been released. It's now the second generation. It comes with the S7 chip, which is inside powering it. It does, it looks very similar to I say it looks similar. It looks like a larger version of the HomePod Mini, doesn't it? As opposed to the previous HomePod.
Yeah. It does, yeah.
So, this is again completely custom built by Apple around, the speaker design inside it. Though interestingly, they've dropped from 7 to 5 tweeters, isn't it? Is it
I think so. Yeah.
The price is now in the UK at least is £299, so it's cheaper than I think a lot of people are expecting. And it's on sale from the first week of February. So this is still an attractive thing. Apple is still pushing it as stereo speakers for your Apple TV. The sound, I haven't seen any reviews yet, of course, because they haven't sound. It comes with the Siri, it comes with spatial audio support, and interestingly, with the latest iOS 16.3 release, which is currently in RC, Apple have unlocked hidden temperature and humidity sensors that already existed in the HomePod Mini.
They snuck those in, didn't they?
So they were there from launch, but iOS 16.3 has now made them available. And to prove it worked earlier, I asked my little box here on my desk, currently a Mini, what the temperature in my office was, and it told me. And then I asked it humidity, and it told me as well.
Nice.
So interesting. I mean, of course, the new HomePods come with that as well. I'm pleased they brought this back. I never thought for a second that they'd killed it off. It just didn't make any sense. Why would Apple kill it off? what I'm interested though is I wonder whether or not they didn't see the demand at the price point they were listing it with, and whereas the HomePod Mini probably sold a lot better, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. HomePod Mini sold by the bucket load, I think.
Yeah, so these have got these new sensors, full automations. Apple are stating things like with the new sensors, you can create automations around your heating. You can turn on blinds, isn't it, or fans. And it's also got new automations. They've given examples. What the one I read on the Apple website was, "Hey, you know who, open the blinds every day at sunrise."
Yeah,
So it's kind of a bit like that. So, and also it's going to have new confirmation tones as well with Siri to say if you turn things on. So again, some small improvements there. Matter support as well comes with these.
yeah, of
That's
course.
already out of the box, which is what we want. And Apple are obviously pushing that back down through the other products as well. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the fact they've released this? I mean, was it surprised to
I'm
you? I
still
mean,
trying to get over the shock that it came back out. It's like they probably just killed that out of the blue, didn't they?
and then ding, we're back.
And then, okay, yeah. I mean, cheap is always nicer. Does it still sound as good? That's the question. Because that had good reviews, the HomePod, from sound quality point of view.
They did. I just think though the problem was the pricing point. Though obviously, if you want a pair of these, it's going to cost you what 600
600.
quid. So it isn't. It's not exactly cheap. But if you were to buy high end Sonos, you're not far off it, really, are you? Let's be honest.
That's true.
They're not massively different. So
But
perhaps
the high-end Sonos sound bars, if you're thinking generally if you want two, you're probably thinking either side of your TV, or what with stuff other than the Apple TV.
yes, that's true. That's a very valid point there. You can do that.
Yep.
So they are out then. Well, on that point, then it's probably a good place to.
Rumor corner. Right. It's a very apologies, it's very Apple heavy today. So we have two. So first, some updates on the infamous periscope camera lenses. So we've been hearing about these since what, 2020, I think?
Yeah, pretty much. They did
About
show up
using
last year.
periscope lenses for the cameras to give you kind of a larger optical zoom rather than the 3x we have now. So the latest reports are saying we're going to be getting it this year, finally, in the iPhone 15, but only in the Pro Max. So if you want the standard size Pro, this year you won't be getting a periscope lens. But if you wait till next year, it'll be in both the Pro and the Pro Max, or whatever we're calling it at that point. Because I've heard rumors it's going to be called the Ultra or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
The
I
Pro
think.
Max will be 15 Ultra. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So only in the Pro Max this year, but next year you should get it in the Pro and the Pro Max. And I imagine the year after it's going to filter down to the standard models.
That's not bad because they're saying it's up to possibly 10 times optical zoom.
Yeah, 5 or 10x zoom. So I'd prefer to see 10x. I mean, 5x isn't much more than the 3x we currently have, is it?
No, I mean it adds something to it, and it does make it better
Definitely.
than the previous generation, certainly. But
10 would be nice, though.
10 would be nice. I think 10 would be far more usable and give you a greater range of options when you're taking pictures. Definitely. I mean, I have to say, and we've talked about this recently. I am certainly not feeling the love with some of the pictures that I'm seeing from the iPhone recently.
Yeah, they're a bit, as we mentioned, a bit over processed now.
Yeah, really are, and it's certainly since talking about it, I don't know whether it's because I'm now more aware of it, but it's just it's not great. It's not great at all. So any improvements they can do there, I mean, to ask Apple to dial down the computational side of it, it's probably not going to happen. But we'll see, But yeah, periscope lens may finally arrive in this year.
Indeed.
And next year, obviously.
Yeah, so the next one. Oh, this isn't really what I wanted to hear. But Gurman is reporting that the planned standalone Apple AR glasses. So this isn't the AR VR headset. It's the one which basically replaces your normal glasses, and you can apparently get prescription versions of it that will give you AR overlaid on your real life. So apparently, this has been postponed indefinitely.
Oh.
Now, I was kind of hoping to see this one.
Definitely. Oh, dear. Not good. Not good at all.
Not good. I mean, obviously, the reason they're stating is that basically technology simply won't be ready anytime soon for this.
Which is a shame, isn't it? Because I think for me, I was more interested in these than I was the AR,
The
the
VR
full VR.
headset,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
This
I
is the
could
one I
see.
was really looking forward to.
Yeah, and for me, I probably was thinking I could get more out of this than in terms of usage capabilities. But given the fact that Microsoft themselves are having issues with HoloLens, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
It's you've got to question: is it that we're not ready for it yet? Is it that the technologies say we're not quite there yet at all, or is it because Apple don't see a market for it? That's the other question, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Do they? I don't know. I'd buy it if it was I'd actually want to buy, but I want it to work decently before I bought it, though. That's the problem. So yeah, maybe if technology's just not right, it's not the right time. But to hear postponed indefinitely isn't great wording.
No, because they're not the only ones either. Meta have pulled back on their one, aren't they? They're shipping a development
Yep.
kit now of their AR glasses, and they're spending. I mean, let's be honest, Meta are the ones that are pumping cash into this kind of technology.
Yeah.
I think Apple, I suppose, are going to want to test the water, with the VR AR capabilities in the new headset, and then I guess if we get to that stage, I mean, AR, I do believe AR will become very much part of everyday life in the future.
But not on my phone. I don't want to have to look through
No,
my
no, no, no,
phone
no,
to
no,
see
no,
the
no, no.
AR. Yeah.
I think we're looking. I genuinely going to think we're going to be looking at a world where AR is going to become ubiquitous, where you'll have overlays. You will look around a room or go somewhere, you'll be able to overlay technology information. I know we're kind of there with certain aspects, but it will become normal. But we're not there yet. Definitely not there yet, which is a shame. But
so talking of those mixed reality headsets, so there's also some good news if you can't afford the $3,000+ we're
that's the
expecting
one, yeah.
this year's headset to cost. Apple are apparently in early stages of development on a more affordable model. I don't know how affordable this is. The statement is around the price of an iPhone. Now, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that we're not referring to the iPhone SE. So we're probably still looking at what, $1,000 plus?
Yeah, probably a minimum of.
I mean, it's more affordable than $3,000 plus, but
True.
I'm not sure that's affordable.
Well, I guess affordable is relative, isn't it? Depending on how much money you have.
Exactly. And obviously, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, affordable is a lot more expensive.
This is true. But yeah, okay, there you go. Well, let's get these first ones out the door first.
Well, yeah.
And we can then, see how it goes. But yeah, I'm not surprised. Apple tend to do, we've got iPhone SEs, as you say. We've got, we've got the iPad Airs, and well, they're high now, isn't it? Normal iPad, I should say. So Watch SEs. So they have got a history of giving or handing out or reducing capability to give you a similar experience, isn't it?
Yep.
So yeah, no, very good, very good. Right then, I guess on that bombshell, it's probably time for us to wrap up for today. We'll be back next week with episode 121 with all of the latest tech news, and I suspect probably more news on the tech layoffs as well coming soon. Of course, you can find us online at techrant.online for all of our show notes information, and we're on Twitter at Weekly Tech Rant. Please give us a follow or share with your friends. We're also happy to accept any suggestions if we are wrong. So get in touch and tell us what you think. And of course, you can find us on all of the major platforms. So if you're telling your friends they don't listen on Apple Podcasts, or they use Spotify or any of the other platforms out there, we are on pretty much all of them. And if we're not on a platform that you think we should be, again, do let us know. Right then, with that, I've been Jay.
I've been Carl. Have a good evening, all.